Welcome to another episode of the Super Dynasty Bros podcast. My name is Ben, and I'm joined here with Austin, Dynasty Austin MJ, Dynasty Big Mac FF. And what we have for you today is a 2024 rookie remock. So we're going over the rookies from 2024, ranking them how they look now after week 18 is done. And we're just gonna go ahead and do this whole thing. So we got a 2-round rookie draft. Superflex, half point tight end premium. Austin, how you feeling about the draft, man?
Yeah, man, I'm excited to get into it. I know there was a lot of good players coming out of this draft. Really, a lot of exciting players that really catapulted into what I think will be first and second round of startups next year. So very exciting. I think there's a lot of hype around the 2024 class, and I think for the most part it paid off. So excited to see how everything shakes out today and how it's kind of changed. I'll be pick one, you'll pick two, we'll alternate. I'll do three, you'll do four, etc. all the way through 2 rounds. So we'll get 24 rookies in, and we can kind of see what it looks like when we're all said and done.
Sounds good. Well, Austin, you have the 101. Who are you taking with the first pick in the draft?
Yeah, so I thought about it a little bit. I was thinking about maybe getting cute and doing Bowers or Neighbors, but I think that in a super flex, the pick here is Jaden Daniels, and I think a lot of times I think you tend to end up with, rookie quarterbacks that get overvalued. I think last year we saw with C.J. Stroud that Keep Trade Cut catapulted him all the way up to number one at one point in their rankings, and I think that was probably a little premature. He's probably outside the top 10. A lot of rankings are clinging onto the 10 spot at this point. But I think the reason why I think Jaden Daniels is different is because of that rushing upside. C.J. Stroud is just a pocket passer, put up some good numbers, but there's a lot more volatility with pocket passers than there is with guys who can run. And Jaden Daniels put up 864 rushing yards and 6 rushing touchdowns. And to me, that creates such a nice floor. I think he's in an elite tier with Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Jalen Hurts at the top of startups. And so it's, for me, he's clearly the top rookie from this class. And so I think you kind of have to take him 101, although I do think we have a couple generational talents that'll probably come off the board very quickly here.
Yeah, for sure. And I like the pick of Jaden Daniels at 101. He definitely was also there for me. I think my next pick is going to be one that could definitely be argued in that conversation. And I think in different formats, he is definitely very much argued as the 101 in that. And that is Brock Bowers. So I took Brock Bowers at the 102. And what can't you say about Brock Bowers' rookie season? He broke the rookie reception record, passing Malik Neighbors. He had 112 in 18 games or 17 games this year. And right now he's on a pretty bad Las Vegas offense, who they are looking at drafting probably a quarterback in the first round this year, whether that's Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward. So I am super excited about Brock Bowers. I think he is the guy that is kind of that Swiss Army knife tight end that, we saw Sam Laporta as, the best rookie tight end of his season kind of regress this season. I don't think you're going to see that from Brock Bowers, as Brock Bowers is the offense in Las Vegas. So I felt pretty confident taking him at the 102. And I think really he has to be the 101 in a full point 10M premium with Jaden Daniels kind of likely either arguing for that 101 or the 102 there. So what do you have for the 103 next year, Austin?
Yeah, can't argue that. I like that pick. Like you said, 1.5 tight end premium, I think is still a good premium, but I think at 1.75 or 1.75 PPR or 2 PPR, you're looking at a much tougher decision at 101. So with the 103, I'm going to take Malik Neighbors. I think that there's sort of a tier to me. There's a top 3 in this class right now. I think there's 3 guys that have separated themselves as the top at their position, and that is Jaden Daniels, Brock Bowers, Malik Neighbors. And Malik Neighbors put up, I think we talked about this on the startup show we did last time, but Neighbors had 20 catches, 250 yards, 3 touchdowns through his first 3 games, which is the first receiver ever to do that. He went through this season with a couple injuries. He had a concussion. He was dealing with some other things down the stretch. Obviously, horrible QB play, but he still finishes the wide receiver 6. I think what we're looking at is a guy that's a locked-in top 5 dynasty wide receiver for the future. If they end up drafting A quarterback, like you said, like there's a lot of upside. I don't think the QB play can be much worse than Daniel Jones, Drew Lock, Tommy DeVito. So I think there's a lot of upside here with Neighbors. In fact, if he just repeats what he did this year, he's probably worth the rookie 103. And I think we've really probably, seen nowhere close to the ceiling of this guy. And I think he's gotten to the point where he's a first round pick in startups. And getting him at the 103 is great value. And I think he's clearly the wide receiver one in this class, at least at this point. Yeah. Where are you going with 104?
So, at the 104, I'm taking another great rookie wide receiver right now. And, a lot of people would have thought that would have been Marvin Harrison Jr., but Brian Thomas Jr., another junior, has jumped into that realm of being one of the top 2 wide receivers out of this class. And just like you said, Malik Neighbors going in kind of that 1-2 turn in startups this offseason. I'm starting to see Brian Thomas as high as the mid-second going in startups. So a lot of people have belief that he is going to be a dominant wide receiver one. And right now he is the wide receiver one in Jacksonville with pretty bad offense. They just fired Doug Peterson as of the last day or so. And they're going to be making a head coaching change. And they're really wanting to form this offense around Brian Thomas Jr. and the passing game. So, I think Trevor Lawrence comes in next season healthier. They're going to get it figured out. And they're going to have to really surround themselves around this passing game. Right now, Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby, not really cutting it as far as the offense is going. I think they're going to probably draft another wide receiver to go opposite of Brian Thomas. But I think he is really going to flourish as a wide receiver one going forward. And we've already seen a lot of the dominant physical part of the game that he has. I actually got to watch one of the games when he was in Detroit, and just to see him run on the field, he is just a monster. And so I'm really excited about his future. And I think this was a lot higher than, and honestly, I think he's one of the highest risers out of a lot of the players that we're going to talk about today from what we saw pre-draft, or kind of the pre-season, versus what we're seeing now after the season is finished. So super excited about Brian Thomas. What are your thoughts on that offense?
80 catches, 1,179 yards, 10 touchdowns for a rookie that played, his whole season with the Jaguars, where half of it was with Trevor Lawrence, half of it was with Mac Jones. Honestly, he looked really good with Mac Jones during those last 3 games.
Better actually than with Trevor Lawrence.
I think it shows that he can pretty much play with anybody. So and there's been rumors, there's a lot of rumors around your Lions offensive coordinator. If he goes over there, and I think there could be some fireworks in Jacksonville. I think it could be a good fit. But we'll have to. That remains to be seen.
A lot to say, just not to sidebar too much, but Ben Johnson has the opportunity to take under the realm of any of these offenses, some of these rookies that we're talking about. Brian Thomas and 2 other rookies we're talking about later with the New England job and the Chicago job.
Yeah, so it's a good segue because Ben Johnson's a factor in his next decision. So for me, it's between 2 quarterbacks, and it's between Drake May and it's between Caleb Williams. And the tiebreaker for me, I think, is it goes back to what I said about Jaden Daniels, is the rushing. And I think a lot of people weren't really thinking about Drake May in terms of his rushing upside. But in 6 of his 11 starts, he's had over 30 rushing yards, including a 95-yard rushing game, very consistently producing 3 or 4 points in that rushing category, really raises his floor. He has the potential to get, he's going to have a new head coach, potentially get an offensive mind, maybe Ben Johnson, somebody like that. But they have the number 4 pick on the draft. So you could see Tet McMillan, you could see Travis Hunter, you could see somebody like that coming in and being a real game-changing weapon for him. So to me, that puts him slightly above Caleb Williams for me. I still believe in Caleb Williams. I still think he's going to be a dynasty difference maker. But I think I didn't pick. But he's still going to be a dynasty difference maker. But to me, Drake May is just slightly better, slightly higher upside. I think he was in the worst situation, and they had very similar rookie seasons. He got started later, but they both averaged right around 15 points per game. And I think that we just saw a lot of flashes for upside on a really terrible team. And I just slightly prefer him. I'd like to have him a little bit more on my dynasty roster, but I think that's very much a coin flip. I could see it going either way.
Yeah. We had this conversation prior to us starting the recording, and I've been battling with this like debate in my head of Drake May versus the next guy who I'm going to take, Caleb Williams. But I think part of it has gone back and forth, and I would agree on Drake May being above Caleb Williams at this point right now, because he has done a lot better with a lot worse of an offense, and a lot worse of a situation. Drake May is just so physically talented that he has done so much for that New England offense, even in a really bad season where they went ahead, fired Gerard Mayo. It has been a terrible season for them. He's made it look much better as far as their future goes. But you're right. They're going to get somebody like Ted McMillan. They are going to get somebody like Travis Hunter potentially. And he's going to definitely turn around. Now, as far as Caleb Williams goes, it was tough still for me because I think Caleb has the potential to still be a QB1 in this league. And, I think part of it is Chicago has to get their offensive line issue figured out. They fired Matt Eberflus, as we kind of alluded to in our startup recording, some months ago. And we were right. They need to get this figured out as far as change of head coach. They need to get this stuff figured out in the draft. And they're also going to try and go after an offensive-minded head coach. They are also in the vying for Ben Johnson as well. We'll see what happens, whether he goes to New England or Chicago. But I think Caleb Williams has the potential to really take off next season. And he's got the weapons. I mean, Keenan Allen's likely going to probably be done with Chicago. We'll see if he signs another deal with them, but could also just be done with Chicago as a free agent next year. And so now you're down to DJ Moore and Rome Odunze, which really helps Rome's stock, which we'll talk about later. But I think what Caleb Williams has is the ability to now show us what he really showed us at USC as the number one pick, because Chicago is just a for lack of a better term, shit show. So, you have the potential for him to really bounce around where Drake May is. Jaden Daniels just had the best situation this year with as far as the team in the head coaching position. So I think Caleb Williams is right behind Drake May there, but I do agree Drake May is just a little bit above Caleb there.
Yeah, I think part of the deal with Caleb Williams is that, he had all these labels of generational talent, undisputed 101. People are really looking at him as like he's a guy that you have to have on your team. And to be honest with you, his rookie season, if you take out the wins and losses, just statistically, is pretty similar to what I think is a realistic expectation for what he would do as a rookie. So I don't think he was really that bad. I mean, you look at 3,400 passing yards, only 19 pass touchdowns, but he also added 479 rushing yards, which is a nice little bonus if he can keep that up. So, I mean, it wasn't a terrible season, and I think that there's obviously a lot of upside with him still. So I think getting him at 106 is pretty good value. And
so as
speaking
a
of,
Lions fan,
go ahead.
I was going to say, as a Lions fan, I think what it is, it's the Chicago Bears stink. Man, it makes everybody look worse than what they're actually doing. And they've had some losses where it was like those should have been wins. But I'll let you move on to your next pick, though.
No, I agree. I think there's a lot of games. I mean, you look at the Washington game, they lost on a tip Hail Mary after he led what should have been a game-winning drive. You had the Packers game with the blocked field goal on another what should have been a game-winning drive. The Lions game where they just didn't use that last time out. So lots of stuff like that where it's like maybe if a few of those go different and this is an 8-9 or 9-8 team that looks promising, there's a whole different conversation around Caleb Williams. So I definitely think that there could be a chance to buy low this offseason with Caleb. And another guy I think is in a very similar situation as Caleb as far as unbelievably high expectations that he couldn't possibly live up to. Generational talent conversation for the 101, it's Marvin Harrison. And I think, to me, this guy, I did it again. But to me, what we're looking at with him is a guy that was talked about as he's going to be in the Chase and Jefferson tier after this season. And he didn't even get 1,000 yards. He showed flashes, but was inconsistent in that Arizona offense. But I think he just needs some time. I think you don't necessarily. I think we've been seeing all these rookies come out and have unbelievable starts to their careers, amazing rookie seasons. Just like every year, it seems like there's somebody setting new records, and so I think we've kind of built this unrealistic expectation for every rookie wide receiver coming in, and different guys produce at different rates. I think you look at Drake London's rookie season; he struggled a little bit. Honestly, very similar numbers to what Marvin Harrison put up. But now look at Drake London. He's a clear-cut top 10 dynasty receiver, and it looks like he's got a very bright future ahead of him. I do think there's a little bit of concern that maybe Kyler Murray is never going to reach the levels that we had hoped, and that maybe their connection wouldn't be as good as we first envisioned. But I think from a value standpoint, he's got a huge name. People still want Marvin Harrison, and if he comes out and drops a couple 25-point games at the beginning of next year, people are going to be considering him a top 5 dynasty receiver, and you can get, a boatload of picks for him, even if you don't really believe in him. So I think at 107, it's a pretty safe pick.
Yeah, I like that, Austin. And I think Caleb and Marv are the two guys that you do target as far as buying low, because people are very, very down on them right now, and we know that they're much better than what they're being perceived as right now. I won't even say, their play, because I actually don't think they've played terribly, but I think what they're being perceived as is much worse than what we know they can be. So, I
think it's a testament to the rest of the class, how much there's been some. You look at Daniels, Bowers, Neighbors. People are taking them first in their position class overall in some startups. So it's just a lot of other talent in the class that but they're still solid first round.
Right. And that's just a testament additionally to some of the guys that we're going to talk about forward, who we had them ranked higher than some of the guys we've already talked about, including Rome Odunze. We had him well over Brian Thomas Jr. But Brian Thomas Jr. Was kind of that guy who we were thinking, we didn't see enough of him. He's also next to Malik Neighbors, so how much is he benefiting from being in the same offense? But Brian Thomas Jr. is a fucking dog.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. My love for BTJ is has no bounds. Okay, so with this next pick, Austin, I want to talk about a guy who has also really climbed the ranks within, since the preseason to now, and that is Bo Nix. Honestly, I was not a big Bo Nix believer. I was not a Bo believer. And, the thing about that is, it was just so much of what people were complaining about in college, how he just never really got it done between Auburn and Oregon, but he was very good with being able to have the rushing upside, and it was very mindful at really not turning the ball over, and could really make the offense start. I really don't know what the issue with Bo Nix was, but it was just a problem that we would never be able to rank him in the same conversation as Jaden Daniels, Drake May, and Caleb Williams. But now he's proving that he is the number 4 QB in that draft class, and I feel pretty safe taking Bo Nix in the 4th or 5th round of a startup. It's in a superflex league. So, I think if you're looking for somebody who has the upside and the youth that Bo Nix does, he's a great asset for your fantasy team going forward, and Denver is invested in him. Sean Payton loves him. Clearly, he didn't want Russell Wilson to be there, but loves Bo Nix. And Bo Nix also is doing this with not the best receiver group. They're good. I think they're stepping up when they need to, but I think they're gonna. I've already seen some mocks that have shown Colston Loveland from Michigan, go blue, going to Denver and stepping up that passing game for Bo Nix, and I love that for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a great pick. Is it possible to be sniped in a mock draft where you're picking every other pick? Because I really was hoping that you would take your boy Ladd there, and I could take Nix and talk about him at 9. But no, I think that's a great pick. I thought about picking him ahead of Harrison. He's been the second best rookie quarterback from a stats standpoint this year. I think he's outperformed May and Williams. I just think that there's a little bit of a, whatever it is, whether it's just perception or just like the idea, maybe he's going to be another Mac Jones that has a great rookie season and falls off.
I think what it is
not being talked about in the same. Yeah.
I think what it attributes to is his first years in college. I think his last season,
Yeah,
because I did watch a lot of Oregon his senior season,
yeah,
and he was really good. But all
oh
the
yeah,
other years before that, it was like he hasn't really put it together. He hasn't really done what we expect him to as a prospect coming into college. But then that last season with Oregon was kind of what we wanted to see. We just didn't think it was going to be what it is now in the NFL.
yeah. I think people are quick to forget that, if Oregon hadn't lost to Washington in the Pac-12 championship game, it would have been very close between Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels for the Heisman. I think the odds were
Mm-hmm.
pretty close to even before that game. And then
Mm-hmm.
basically him losing that game made it Jaden Daniels ended up pulling away. But yeah, incredible senior season. He's 24 years old. He came in and played like a veteran almost right away. So yeah, I think that's a great pick there. I'm gonna go with Lad McConkey. Um, he's another guy that I think got overlooked because he seemed like there wasn't a ton of upside. But I think if he looks like he's going to be the new Keenan Allen in Los Angeles, which I mean, never a flashy player, but a guy that's probably going to get you close to 100 receptions every year. Um, I just think that you could not have asked for a better situation. Now he started off his rookie season 77 catches, 1,054 yards, 7 touchdowns. I fully expect, assuming they don't sign two other wide receivers that really dilute targets, that he could push that 100 reception mark next year. I think that
Yeah.
you're really going to look at a guy that is a safety blanket for Justin Herbert and also a big play guy. It's not like he's just getting checkdowns or slant routes. So I really like McConkey here. I think I could see you taking him, at 106, 107 even. I think that he's performed that way. He's probably been he's outperformed Harrison, he's outperformed May and Williams.
Yeah.
But I think at this point just there's a little bit of ceiling cap with a guy like McConkey that isn't there with Harrison or some of these quarterbacks that I think makes 109 really a good spot for him.
Yeah, for sure. I think talking about how he has outperformed Harrison is true, but this mock draft is looking at the value of those players,
Yeah.
and Harrison still holds that value over McConkey,
Yeah.
whether people like it or not.
Right.
Um, so yeah, with the 10th pick, I was kind of battling back and forth with this one, but I'm going to change it up here quite a bit, and I think he was such a sleeper in the rookie draft season that it was a big surprise for people. But Bucky Irving, I'm going to take with the 10th
Mm.
pick here, and right now he is the RB1 in Tampa Bay. He really helps Baker with that offense as far as really taking a lot of attention away from the pass game, and he's just a much more efficient back than Rashad White is. He's a lot more powerful and just doesn't really have any ball control issues as much as Rashad White does. So Tampa Bay has a lot of trust in him, and right now he's proving to be the RB1 from this class as far as
Oh
numbers
yeah.
wise, right? We wanted that to be Jonathan Brooks or we wanted it to be Trey Benson, but they haven't. Of course, Brooks with the injury, Trey Benson hasn't really gotten his opportunity as much with James Conner being there, but Bucky Irving came in and stole that job, and it is his at least now for the taking. And I get into conversations a lot with listeners and other people that I'm in leagues with, and there's Bucky going in the fourth and fifth rounds, up in the same conversation as Josh Jacobs and some of those other running backs that are proven veterans.
I think it's deservedly
But it's
so.
just the body of work. So I don't know.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts on that, Austin?
Yeah, I think that Bucky Irving is a guy that has catapulted himself up into that. He's at this point he's a top 10 dynasty running back. I think that the Bucks have shown that they want to use him a lot. I think that we saw even with him splitting carries, him looking like a guy that can really produce. I think Chase Brown and him had similar trajectories throughout the year. Two of the
Yeah.
biggest risers I think for dynasty. And I just made my own rankings for Dynasty just this past week, and I had Bucky Irving as my RB7. So I think that's just right above Josh Jacobs. So I think that's like you were saying. I think that's exactly where his value is right now. The running back position is so volatile. It's kind of hard to say how that compares to the other positions. That's why it's interesting here in this rookie draft. I think I like Bucky Irving a lot, and I had him slotted in as my 12th rookie. So I had two guys that have not been picked above him. And one of them I'm going to take here, and that is Michael Penix. Now, I think with Penix, what's interesting is I think that there's a little bit of he got kind of his value was suppressed a little bit in rookie drafts. Here, do you want to scroll over a little bit so we can see the 12? There you go. There's a little bit of suppressed value in rookie drafts because I think the idea was this guy isn't going to start for 3 years, right? That was kind of everybody's like Cousins is locked in there. This guy isn't going to start for a long time, but he got his opportunity and he's playing pretty well for his first couple starts. And it looks like they're committed to him going forward. So I'm actually I think this is a really good value for Penix. I think he belongs right up there with Bo Nix, Caleb Williams. I really do. I think that there's a lot of upside that he probably is in the best situation besides Jaden Daniels. I think Daniels seems like he's got a really good thing going in Washington. It's only going to get better. But I think between May, Williams, Nix, and Penix, I actually would take Penix's situation over any of them. And maybe he's not quite the talent of May or Williams, but the upside I think is very much there with Drake London and Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson in that offense.
Yeah.
So I think that being able to get him almost at the turn, almost into the second round, is really good value. And people that got him in the middle of the second rookie drafts are obviously ecstatic about how it's played out.
Yeah. I know in my home dynasty league that he was taken with the 202, or 204 actually. So, that owner was very happy. Ended up trading actually for Michael Penix right after he got the starting job, and on a pretty good deal. But yeah, I agree with that sentiment, Austin. And Michael Penix, we saw it in Week 18, just how great he can be with connections to dominant players like Drake London, and hopefully, what can we do with Kyle Pitts? But I think there's a bright future for him in Atlanta if he can figure it out, and a much better fit for the offense than what Kirk Cousins was having in that offense.
Sure.
So. I like that pick. Honestly, was right up there with Bucky Irving. I had him like this and this, and then I just was like, I want to go for the running back here. So the next pick on my list here, I have Caleb Williams' mate here in Chicago. I have Rome Odunze, and Rome. I think part of it is just Chicago is, as we talked about earlier, Chicago, just a shit show right now, and they are going to get it figured out with a new head coach. Ryan Poles is a good GM based off of what he has done for the team so far. He just needs to build up that offensive line, and he's going to prove himself by finding himself a good offensive-minded head coach. But I think Rome Odunze has all the talent in the world. We saw him come out as a senior out of Washington with all the physical talent that we want out of a dominant wide receiver. He's a little bit more of your 50-50 ball guy versus what Marv is and what Malik Neighbors is. But I do think that he is going to be the Chicago wide receiver one after this season. DJ Moore is signed to a contract there for some more years. Keenan Allen likely leaving or, maybe signing a 1-year deal with Chicago. We don't know yet. But I think Rome is the future for Chicago. And I do think that, he has the quarterback to back him up. And, they're both two young guys that are going to grow together. So, more than any other wide receiver on this list right now, give me Rome. I'll take him at the end of the first round. What are your thoughts on that, Austin?
Yeah, I think Rome and Penix, those are the two guys that I had above Bucky Irving, and I think Rome, still has a lot of upside. I'm not really sure what people were expecting from his rookie season. I mean, it was obviously a crowded wide receiver room, so I'm honestly not surprised with the production he put up. I think it's very similar to Jackson Smith and Jigba last year, where it was a crowded wide receiver room, so there was kind of this idea that maybe he might not produce right away, but then when he didn't, people were still very disappointed. I think, and obviously we saw how it worked out for JSN this year. So, yeah, I think there's a ton of built-in upside for Odunze to bounce back. But the reason why I think I'd have Odunze and Penix above Irving is just overall, I just think the RB position is so volatile. It's so hard to pick they die so quickly as far in value. So even though I have him up as running back 7, I don't think I could take him above guys like Penix or Odunze. But that's just kind of my personal strategy. But I really like all of those guys are good value at the end of the first there.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's flip it back over to 201. And I am going to take, let me take a look at what I got here. I think here is where I'm going to go with Xavier Worthy. He really came on towards the end of the year. It seemed to be developing a rapport with Mahomes. And I know it's a crowded room in Kansas City. It seems like, with Rashee Rice, he should be back next year. There could be a suspension there, but we don't really know what that looks like yet. But Travis Kelce is sort of winding down his career. DeAndre Hopkins obviously is towards the tail end of his career. So it seems like a crowded room, but there could be even more opportunity coming for Worthy. And he seems to be a guy that they're committed to being part of their plan. Obviously, they traded up for him. And like I said, towards the end of the year, he's building a good rapport with Mahomes. And I think if you're getting him in the second here, I think that's pretty good value. He was probably being a little overdrafted. I think probably people that were taking him over Brian Thomas in rookie drafts are probably kicking themselves right now, but I still think he's going to end up being a nice player and a good guy to have on your dynasty teams.
Yeah, I like the pick there, Austin. I think he come on as of late. I just have one guy who I'm also going to take at the position who I have just above him, and that is the wide receiver from Buffalo, Keon Coleman. And I have Keon there because just like Bo Nix, I was not a believer in what Keon Coleman was. First of all, Michigan State athlete at one time. Just kidding. But with that said,
well, I'm a Gator, so he played for both of our rivals. He's a Florida State guy.
For sure, Spartan Seminoles. We're not a podcast for you guys. Just kidding. No, we love everybody to be our followers. But Keon Coleman he's talent. There was a lot of red flags in the rookie draft season as far as, he was kind of that guy who just relied on explosive plays. And, we were really wondering about his route tree and what that was going to look like if it was going to be as limited as it was at Michigan State and Florida State. But I think he's looked really good in the second half of the season with Josh Allen. I think there were some struggles at the beginning of the season because different offensive coordinator going into it from the previous season at the end of the season with the offensive coordinator change there. And they ran the ball a lot with James Cook. So, and Josh Allen on his legs as well. But towards the second half of the season and I think there's actually something that I saw recently, and this, we would have to look into this as far as the facts, but I had heard rumors that Josh Allen was playing on a injured wrist coming into the season. And so that could have a lot to do, at least with his lack of production at the beginning of the season and his lack of confidence being able to throw to his receivers. But he also had a new cast. He dropped off Stephon Diggs off to Houston. And then now you have Dalton Kincaid, Keon Coleman. They picked up Amari Cooper partway through the season, and that hasn't really panned out to be. That didn't really pan out to be much. We'll see what the playoffs hold. But Keon Coleman has been dominant as far as what he has run in his routes. His route tree is much greater than what we saw in college, and he is actually leading the rookies as far as his I think 625 total air yards on the season. I think it was like something like 19 air yards per completion, which is insane stat for a rookie like him. Keon, he has the hands. Josh Allen's going to get him the ball. I think that's a great connection you want on your team. You've got an elite quarterback just like you do with Xavier Worthy, and give me the talent with Keon Coleman here.
Yeah, I think it's a good spot. It's a good spot for him. Seems like he's had maybe a little bit of a disappointing rookie year, but he still probably slots in value-wise exactly where he was being drafted, and I think there's still obviously all the same upside there with Josh Allen.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go with JJ McCarthy. I think there's a lot of people that I think have pushed him down boards just because it looks like Sam Darnold has the potential to be signed long-term there. But I'm not so sure that's going to happen. I think that there's a chance that if there's a flame out in the playoffs, and it's basically a pick 'em game that they have with the Rams. If they lose that game, it would not surprise me at all if they let him walk and went ahead and roll with McCarthy next year. And even if not, I think that McCarthy still holds a lot of value. He will be starting. He will be a starting quarterback at some point in this league. And so I think very much similar to what we were looking at with Michael Penix at the beginning of the season, I think that the worst case scenario for JJ McCarthy is being in a Michael Penix-like spot where he's sitting behind a veteran quarterback for a couple years. I think if they do end up signing Sam Darnold, I think that there'll be a lot of teams that try to trade for McCarthy. Whether they do that or not, not sure, but I do think that there will be a spot for McCarthy to start. And, he was going middle of the first. I still think there's still a lot of potential that he can, return on that investment. And so I think getting him, the 203 is a good value.
Yeah. I like the thought with Sam Darnold there, because I was actually listening to an episode of the FF Dynasty earlier this week, and they were talking about how Sam Darnold could potentially sign a larger contract with another team, right? He's going to be coming off and probably earning somewhere 45 plus a year, possibly on like a 1-year deal with another team. With this last game in Detroit, he struggled massively, and if he does, like you said, struggle in the playoffs against some of that other competition, they have something to think about as far as letting him walk and starting JJ on his second year. We'll all see where it all shakes out, but I agree that there is safety in taking JJ with either staying with the Vikings or potentially getting traded. So good pick there, Austin. With the next pick, I will take Jalen McMillan here. And Jalen McMillan has been another one that has really come on as of late. He is being targeted by Baker heavily. Being targeted heavily by Baker in the second half of the season, and I think that's going to continue in the playoffs. But we knew what Jalen McMillan was in college, right? Like, I think for me, I actually had him above Polk coming out in where I was doing my rookie evaluations. I really had Rome, and then I had Jalen McMillan right there. And I think, to me, he was probably a second-round talent more than Polk was. But, yeah, Jalen McMillan's really come on as one of Baker's favorite targets. He's tied to Baker and in a really good Tampa Bay offense right now. I think you have to trust what his talent is showing in the mid-second round here of rookie draft.
Yeah, I like that pick. He was top of my board there. I'm going to roll next with Ricky Pearsall. I think that he had a very small role for the first half of the season, but the 49ers did invest a first-round pick in him. Obviously, he had the Ayuk injury. Debo looks to not, it looks like his best days are behind him. So I do think there's a lot of potential for Ricky Pearsall. His last couple of games, he was looking really good. And I think that we could see him take on a much larger role in this offense next year, in an offense that I think will get healthy and look better next year than it did this year. And potentially a contract year for Brock Purdy. So they seem to have a pretty good connection, and he did well even with Josh Dobbs last week. So I think Ricky Pearsall is a good sneaky value if you can still buy low on him.
Yeah. So moving on to my pick, and I love the pick of Ricky Pearsall. That was going to be my next pick, but you did snipe me there as well. So looking at the 206, I decided to take Xavier Legette. And I think part of that, Austin, is we are seeing a really cool thing happen in Carolina towards what we saw towards the second half of the season. I think Dave Canales benching Bryce Young was the right move, and Bryce Young coming back off the bench after Andy Dalton was hurt was honestly a blessing in disguise for what that offense was seeing. They are figuring it out. I think the offense has looked a lot healthier against some of these defenses as of late. And Legette is going to be a really great option for them. They drafted him in the first round with the intention that he was going to be either their wide receiver one or potentially, depending on free agency in this next draft, if they end up getting another alpha receiver in their offense. But I think Legette is going to be a staple in this offense, with Bryce Young also being another young asset on that team. So I think taking him right in the middle of the second is a great spot to take him. But I did like Pearsall, the pick before. So that was where I had to change up things a little bit.
Yeah, No, I think Leggett still has a lot of potential, and obviously the emergence of Bryce Young towards the end of the year, I think, is
Yeah,
given that whole offense a lot more hope.
yeah,
So I was talking about how I don't like really drafting, running backs, but I think at this point you've kind of run the wide receiver well pretty dry. And so I'm going to go with the guy that I consider the running back two from this rookie class, and that's Tyrone Tracy. I think there's definitely some concern that they could bring someone else in, but he looked like he was capable of carrying a load. And I think that there's still some value as far as I think he might be a guy I look to sell in the offseason just with the potential that the Giants bring someone else in.
yeah,
But if he gets another opportunity to be a lead back, I think he's a guy that you can easily plug into your lineup, every week really if you wait on running back. And so I think middle of the second at this point, you're talking about you'd be looking at guys like Adonai Mitchell, and you're taking flyers on guys that really haven't produced. So to get a guy that's a starting caliber player, I think it's a good value here.
yeah. I like that pick, Austin. And yeah, I have definitely been enjoying that rookie season from Tyrone Tracy in multiple of my dynasty leagues. So just definitely a great pick. I had here at the 208, um, taking Trey Benson. So honestly, what we thought was going to be up there in the top two running backs from this class, uh, part of it just unfortunately has to do with the fact that he sat behind James Conner. But I think we know what we're getting out of Trey Benson from what we saw from him at Florida State. He really showed what he could do kind of in that change of pace role when they would take Conner off the field between him and DeMercado. Benson was clearly the better back, being the younger, stronger back. But I think as Connor, the issue is they just signed Connor to another an extension, right? Because I think he got a couple
Yeah.
more years. But
Mhm.
I still think Benson has the opportunity to over time still take over that role. And I think with the injury to Jonathan Brooks, he is the running back that you want in that situation versus Jonathan Brooks coming off of a second ACL injury. So I think you take the
Yeah.
shot on Trey Benson. I believe they did extend James Conner, so there is a little bit of that, but you are taking a very talented back as the RB3 in this class.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't fault you for that. Brooks is going to be my next pick. I think at this point, it's really tough to see those back-to-back injuries, but you're shooting for upside late second round picks, and
Yeah,
I think there's still a lot of upside there. Chuba Hubbard did get signed to a longer term contract, but I don't see him as being like somebody that if Jonathan Brooks comes back healthy, like stands in his way of getting opportunities. I think Brooks will get opportunities, especially if the Panthers continue to become a better offense. If Bryce Young takes another step forward, they draft a wide receiver. Who knows what's going to happen with the coaching situation there, but I do think there's a lot of potential growth with that offense, and I still would like some shares of Jonathan Brooks because I do think all of the hype around him in the early draft season, it's still there.
yeah,
There's still potential. Everything that we liked about him is still there. The two injuries early is really tough, but a lot of people buried Brees Hall for the same thing, and now he's a guy that's considered a clear top five dynasty running back. So I'd still, I wouldn't take him anywhere near the first round or the early second at this point. He was going. I saw him going maybe 109 in some rookie drafts,
yeah,
but almost always in the first round. And so this is obviously a huge drop off for him, but I do think there's still some upside.
yeah, yeah. I think Brooks still has the talent. He was, the uh, very heavily favored running back one coming into the class.
Yeah,
But yeah, the injuries definitely stink. But that is kind of what you're shooting for in that late second round is just the guys who could really, really change things once they make a change in their situation. Um,
yeah,
so with the next pick, Austin, I ended up deciding to take in this tight end premium situation Ben Sinnott. I think with Sinnott, you are just looking at the potential of what he can be with a QB like Jaden Daniels, and um, you know Terry's aging. We have probably some changes within the wide receiver room, and so Sinnott could become a top 2 to 3 option in that offense. And you're talking about a connection of Sinnott being what he was at Kansas State. Also, we knew he was a heavy blocker too in regards to his kind of that archetype that he is of tight end. But he also is going to be catching a lot of passes from Jaden Daniels going forward. And I think you just take the shot on the unproven point in this late second round. Benson, it's a great pick here.
Yeah. And I think the last time you saw a highly touted rookie kind of have a uninspiring rookie season behind Zach Ertz, that was Trey McBride. And now look how he's turned out. So.
Exactly.
But yeah, so I'm gonna roll here with Blake Corum. I think that there is. I thought about Adonai Mitchell, but to me right now, being the wide receiver 3 or 4 on an Anthony Richardson led offense it's just tough to see the upside with him. I think that there's a lot of. I still think there's he has the talent, but there's games where Richardson's only completing 8 or 9 passes, and it's just hard to find pathway to targets there. So, but I'm gonna go with Blake Corum. I think that he showed enough for me in relief of Kyren Williams that if Kyren Williams were to get hurt or Kyren Williams were to just kind of fall off the cliff, that he could step in and be a workhorse. And so I think that with that potential there, you're actually getting him later than you got him in rookie drafts last year. I like him at 211.
Yeah, I like that pick there, Austin. And to finish us off, I am going to take Adonai Mitchell. I had him right there with Corum as well. And I think for Mitchell, what you have left of the wide receivers, I mean, you have Jermaine Burton, he's kind of a really big wild card in regards to what he could be in that Bengals offense, and also still very low on the depth chart. But Adonai Mitchell at least provides you some potential that he could jump into that wide receiver room and potentially be a wide receiver 2 behind Michael Pittman and kind of be a target for Anthony Richardson in the future. It's just that Colts offense is still hard to really kind of put our finger on right now. But I think Adonai Mitchell offers the physical talent there. So
I think it's just tough for me because I really like Josh Downs too in that offense, and it's just like there's just so many. I feel like there's a lot of weapons, but there's just not a lot of volume, so it's hard to see how that comes about. But maybe Richardson takes a big step forward, and Mitchell takes a step forward with him. So yeah.
I mean, right now Downs for sure ahead of Mitchell, but that could change. Yeah, so I like the draft here, Austin. It's very, very similar to what I'm seeing right now in startups and where those rookies are falling. It's crazy how these things change, but we're kind of getting into now the rookie valuation for the 2025 class, and it's getting exciting as we have the combine coming up next month after the Super Bowl, and then we're going to start this all over again. So this is always a fun exercise to do before preseason and postseason to see what we have. Yeah. So thank you for watching, guys. We're looking to be starting some things up here in this kind of as we move into the next couple of months of 2025 here and heading into the spring with rookie season and all of that. We are thinking of starting up some things going on with potential startup leagues for the podcast. We have our Discord as well, which we'll be including that in the details down below. If you haven't, also follow our social media on TikTok. You can follow me on X. I'm Dynasty Big Mac FF, and of course Austin at Dynasty Austin MJ. So thank you for joining us, Austin. Do you have any parting words for our followers?
Yeah, man, I'm just excited to kind of get going again. I know we had a little bit of a break there over the holidays, but excited to kind of get some more content out, get it going. And this was a fun exercise, just kind of seeing the ups and downs of where the rookies fall out. And I know that we're probably about to jump full into starting to talk about next year's rookies. Dynasty is a year-round game, and we just finishing up our playoffs and getting ready to get ready to win more championships next year. Yeah,
for sure, man. Did you have a good season this year?
Yeah, I won a couple of my bigger leagues, but I also had a couple I lost close. So it's kind of definitely a profitable year from a buy-ins to winning standpoint. But just missed out on being even bigger. But you can't be too greedy. So I'm happy with how it turned out. How about you?
For sure. First was same here. Yeah, I won 2 money leagues and some free leagues here and there, but definitely had a more
Yeah.
profitable season. Did not have the opportunity to be able to take the season in my home redraft league with my college buddies, but there's always next year. It's the one that will always haunt me. But
Yeah.
yeah, and we hope that you guys also had a very good fantasy season. So thank you for joining us on the podcast, and we'll see you guys in the next one.